They always say the truth will set you free. They never mention what it will cost you. For me, the price was everything. My name, my future, and the version of myself I once thought was real. I was born in the ashes of the fractures, that chaotic time when cities fell like dominoes and entire nations burned themselves out with pride and fear. By the time I was old enough to walk, the world had already been reshaped into something colder, a place where hope was a commodity, bought and sold like grain. Out of that broken soil, the Hero Initiative grew, not out of compassion, out of necessity. People needed someone to believe in. Not politicians, not generals. They were already tainted. They needed myth made flesh, icons they could worship and follow. And so, they built them, first through training, then through augmentation, and finally through marketing. By the time I was 16, recruitment agents were already sniffing around my district. They ran schools like factories, churning out candidates for the next generation of heroes. They picked me for my raw potential, fast reflexes, high pain threshold, genetic markers that indicated a likelihood of surviving enhancement protocols. No one asked what I wanted. No one cared. Training broke the weak quickly. Those who survived Phase 1 learned to kill without hesitation. Those who survived Phase 2 learned to survive being killed. I passed every test. I beat every simulation. I lost friends along the way, if you could call them that. In that place, bonds were liabilities. But even after I'd proven myself again and again, when it came time to choose the new public heroes, they hesitated. They called it a branding issue. I was too rough, too scarred, too haunted looking. They wanted someone who could smile for cameras while standing on a mountain of corpses. That's when Daniel Crane entered the picture. He wasn't from the initiative. He was a civilian, an actor. Pretty boy looks, easy charisma. They gave him a crash course in how to wear the armor without embarrassing himself. Taught him some basic hand-to-hand poses. Nothing too complicated. He wouldn't be using them outside of choreographed media clips anyway. The real work would be done by operational doubles, people like me, except it wasn't an act. It was a sentence. First came the operations, smuggling rings in the drowned sectors, genetic terrorists planting bioweapons in the slums, pirate clans raiding medical convoys. It was me. Every time, boots in the mud, flesh on the line, breathing in smoke so thick it carved lines into your lungs. And Daniel? He'd swoop in at the last minute, escorted by initiative cleanup crews posing for holocams while I bled out behind the rubble. They called him Aegis, the shield of humanity. I called him a parasite. The days blurred together. Each mission followed a familiar rhythm. Me, in the dark, doing the real work. Aegis, emerging only for the applause. We were shadows in a world that only cared about light. But no one, not even I, could have predicted the fracture in the illusion, the first real crack in the mask. It happened during a routine operation, or at least it was supposed to be. The mission was simple enough. A high-profile target, a bioengineer who'd gone rogue, was holed up in the ruins of what used to be downtown Pulse. The streets had long since been abandoned, the buildings either crumbling into dust or repurposed as makeshift strongholds by gangs. We were sent in to neutralize the target and retrieve his research, standard protocol. At least that's what they told us. I wasn't the only one who noticed something was off. The intel seemed rushed, incomplete, and when I made the first strike on the target's hideout, I didn't find the usual fortified resistance. Instead, I found civilians, starving, battered, and terrified. They were being used as human shields. I called for backup, for extraction, but nothing came. I was alone. I could have taken the shot. The mission could have been a success. But then, the thought hit me. Aegis would show up again, posing for the cameras, taking the credit for a clean mission. He'd become the hero once more, standing tall in front of a mass grave, while I would fade into nothing. So, I didn't take the shot. Instead, I made a choice. I rescued the civilians, all of them. I dragged them out, one by one, under fire, through collapsed buildings, over cracked streets filled with acid rain. I thought I was making a statement. I thought maybe, just maybe, I could change things. But when the debriefing came, it didn't matter. The target was still alive. The mission was a failure. And Aegis? He arrived late, looking like a knight in shining armor, and secured the bioengineer with one clean shot. He had no idea what really happened. None of them did. Yet he would be the one hailed as the savior, the people's hero, the one who saved the day. It was in moments like this, when I realized just how deep the rot went, that I knew there was no turning back. The truth had to come out. If it didn't, I would suffocate under the weight of this false narrative until I became a ghost. I started pulling at the threads. Late nights and dark corners of the initiative's servers, disguising my identity, hacking encrypted channels to piece together reports. I was looking for something, anything, a crack, a document, a file, to prove that everything Aegis was claiming wasn't true. And that's when I found it. A little-known but critical operation, Project Cinder. It had started as a quiet contract with a rogue government faction. Its initial goal was to develop new biochemical agents that could manipulate public opinion, subliminal mind control techniques designed to steer the masses, weapons of perception. But it had escalated. Aegis was involved in its cover-up. At first, I thought it was a simple misdirection, but the deeper I dug, the more I realized that this project had been behind nearly every public disaster in the last decade. Terrorist attacks, plague outbreaks, military failures, all part of an orchestrated plan to keep people desperate and dependent. And Aegis, he was a tool in the scheme. He wasn't just a hero to the people. He was the face of a system designed to break them down so they could be rebuilt in the image of the powerful. By now I couldn't stop myself. The dam had broken. The truth clawed its way out of me like a tidal wave. I prepared for the expose. I couldn't trust the initiative's media. They'd been spinning the narrative for too long. I hacked into their global broadcast lines, ready to launch my own transmission. A raw, uncut look at everything they'd hidden. But before I could release it, something unexpected happened. The mission of the century, the Valor Awards, and it was supposed to be just another PR event. Aegis would get his Lifetime Achievement Award, a grand speech, a moment of glory. But when I dug deeper, I realized the event was not just a celebration, it was a trap. The initiative had designed it to be a showcase of the heroic ideal. They wanted to elevate Aegis to a position of godhood in the public's eyes. And they'd planned it meticulously. They also wanted to use it as a stage to solidify their hold over the public. They were about to unveil a new, enhanced hero system, one that would completely replace traditional military forces with branded marketable figures. The hero system had evolved into something far more dangerous than I ever realized. I couldn't let them pull this off. I couldn't let Aegis wear the crown they'd handed him. The night of the awards arrived. I was ready. But not for what happened next. I didn't anticipate the confrontation. I didn't expect Aegis to find out, but he did. It started in the back rooms of the event. I was preparing to make the broadcast, checking the servers one last time when the door slammed open. And there he was, Aegis, the golden boy, his face painted with that smug confidence, the same smile he had worn for years. "Did you really think you could destroy me?" he sneered. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. "You're nothing," he continued. "Just a shadow in the dark, pretending to be something more than you are. You're not a hero. You're a ghost." I felt my pulse quicken, the anger flooding through me, but I didn't raise my voice. "You're the one hiding behind a mask," I said, my voice low, almost amused. "I'm the one who's been bleeding for this." He chuckled. The sound of it made my blood run cold. "You think they care about your sacrifices?" he said. "They only care about the story, the spectacle. And you're nothing but a page in a history book no one will read." And for the first time, I realized he wasn't just a fraud. He had become his own lie. He believed the story. The broadcast went live. It wasn't just a recording. It was a live transmission, shot straight into the heart of the media. I showed everything. The documents, the footage, the truth behind every supposed victory Aegis had claimed. I revealed Project Cinder. I revealed the initiative's manipulations. Aegis was exposed, his golden image crumbling before the eyes of the world. But even as the audience began to react, I saw him, standing in front of the cameras, drenched in sweat, his mask slipping. It was then I realized he wasn't a hero. He was a puppet, and I had just cut the strings. In the aftermath, things moved quickly. The world revolted. The public felt betrayed, but it wasn't enough. Aegis disappeared, slipping into the cracks of a system that no longer cared for him. His career was over, but the damage had already been done. As for me, I walked away. No medal, no accolades, just the quiet satisfaction of knowing the truth had finally seen the light. I didn't need to be a hero. I didn't need to be a story. I just needed to be real. The world went dark for a while after the broadcast. In the silence that followed, it wasn't about the chaos or the media fallout. It was about something much more personal. The storm inside me had calmed, but the damage was done. Exposing Aegis, exposing everything, had come at a price I wasn't sure I could pay. I couldn't go back to the initiative, not after what I had revealed. There would be no more missions, no more lying to myself about the kind of person I had become. But the world needed something else. They needed to rebuild. 2 months passed. The public began to digest the enormity of the revelations. The government agencies scrambled to mitigate the damage, offering apologies, promising reforms. But the truth was out. People felt betrayed. The myth of heroes had shattered. It was hard to know who to trust when every hero, every champion of the people, was built on lies. I spent those 2 months in the shadows, not hiding, but not present either. I couldn't let myself be swept away by the flood of news or the endless think pieces about the fall of Aegis. I wasn't interested in the circus anymore. I didn't need to watch them tear apart someone else's life to feel vindicated. I had done the right thing, but the victory was hollow. And then, the offer came. A new figure emerged from the wreckage. Vera Albright. She was a former member of the initiative, but unlike the others, she had never embraced the false narrative. She'd left the system years ago, working quietly in the background to expose the darker dealings of the agency. She wasn't a hero in the traditional sense, not in the way the public would have expected. She didn't wear a cape. She didn't have flashy powers, but she had something I recognized: resolve. Vera approached me, but not as a hero or savior. She came to me as an ally. "I know what you did," she said when we met in a dimly lit cafe. "You're tired, but you don't have to be alone in this." She laid out her plans for me. There were rumors circulating about new systems being set up in the wake of Aegis's fall, plans for a new heroic era, one that would bring back the initiative's brand of controlled power. But Vera's vision was different. She wanted to rebuild not just by exposing the frauds, but by empowering people to rise up on their own, without relying on false idols. She had already begun rallying others. People who had been abandoned by the initiative, people who wanted real change. The world needed more than just exposing lies. It needed to heal. Vera wasn't offering me fame or power. She was offering me something I hadn't realized I wanted: redemption. But it wasn't going to be easy. We weren't going to be heroes in the way the world had been told to expect. We were going to be something more. We were going to be the ones to remake the system. Months passed. I trained again. But this time, it wasn't just about power. It wasn't about defeating enemies or surviving battles. It was about giving people the tools to make choices for themselves. We worked with civilians, teaching them how to defend their communities, how to resist manipulation, how to stand tall without waiting for a hero to swoop in and save them. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't easy, but it was real. Aegis had been the face of the system, a puppet of the powerful. I was learning to become the opposite, not a savior, but a catalyst. The road was long. There were setbacks. We fought smaller battles, gained ground slowly, but we built something that was truly ours. And as the new networks we had started grew, I realized something I hadn't before. The hero system wasn't broken because of a single lie. It was broken because it had been built on lies from the start. We had to dismantle the idea of the hero itself. The final confrontation came when we least expected it. Months into the new system, after we had already started helping rebuild trust in the community and among grassroots activists, the old regime made a move. Vera had been right. They had been watching, waiting for a moment to strike back. It started with a covert attempt to recapture the narrative, a staged attempt to take me out. The initiative's remnants, who still held sway over key parts of the world's media and military forces, had orchestrated a major operation to paint me as a fugitive, a rogue, someone dangerous. It was a trap. They tried to draw me out, just like Aegis had done years ago, with the same tactics. But this time, it didn't work. I wasn't alone anymore. The streets weren't empty. The people who had once been in the shadows, the ones who had been used and discarded, they were standing with me. Together, we fought back against the initiative's remnants. The system that had controlled us for so long was starting to unravel. The battle wasn't clean. There was blood. There were casualties. But for the first time, it felt like we were fighting for something real. In the final moments, as the initiative's last stronghold crumbled, I stood in the center of it all, not as a hero, not as a savior, but as a witness. The system that had destroyed so many lives was finally collapsing under the weight of its own lies. And for the first time in years, I could breathe. The aftermath? There were no grand celebrations, no medals, no interviews. But there were quiet victories, people rebuilding their own lives, new leaders emerging, a chance for a different kind of world to grow, free of the shadows we had been living under. And Aegis? I never saw him again. I didn't need to. In the end, there was no victory parade for us, no applause, just the work of picking up the pieces and learning to live in a world without false idols. I didn't need to wear a mask to feel real anymore. I didn't need to be a hero. I just needed to be me.